What's going on YouTube? Today I'm going to be doing a mid to high fade tutorial, a step-by-step breakdown. This is the first step that you guys have to take in any mid fade haircut, guys, with no hooks. Go from the temple of the head to the back of the occipital bone. The occipital bone is a bone that protrudes in the back of the head. Right there at the temple of the head, let's take our first guideline using my gamma hitters. That these trimmers are not zero gap. So what that means is that they come straight out of the box like that, guys. It just makes it easier for us to blend out that line to go into the next step, which is to open up our lever and I think they're the Rebels by Stylecraft Pro, and we're going to create a one finger guideline in one side of the head, and we want to replicate it on the other side of the head and make sure that it's one finger thick. Once that step is complete, attach the number 1 guard and open up the lever. This creates the 1.5, and we want to repeat the same process of doing a one finger guideline that is the same exact measurements as the previous guideline. So now we have two separate guidelines. We're going to create another guideline with the number 2 guard with the lever open. This is a 2.5. So now we have three separate guidelines. We have the half guideline, the 1.5 guideline, and the 2.5 guideline. And make sure that when you guys are working with bulk in the back of the head, make sure you guys flick out towards that crown area to make it an easier process for you guys to blend out the lines. Take it one more step further, guys, and apply the same pressure using the number 3 guard with the lever open. This is the 3.5, and we're gonna go a finger above that 2.5, guys. And if you guys also want to, you guys can close the lever and go a tiny bit lower and just flick out towards all of that bulk. So it's up to you guys to figure out how high you guys want to go. And there's a little bit of bulk at the top, so I did this little scooping method that I like using with my comb with the 3 guard with the lever open to create a nice little base for me to go in with my thinning shears to just dense out that area to blend that into the 3.5. This method works especially when you guys are beginning, because you guys want to make sure that your work is as clean as possible, organized as possible. Your guidelines are visible so you know exactly what step you're on, and you don't have to like skip steps or go back and correct your work. You guys can go from guideline to guideline. So in this step, I have my lever in the middle. We're doing the middle open close method. What that means is that we're gonna have our lever in the middle. We're gonna attack the guideline in the middle, so you guys can go from the beginning to the middle and just keep working in that fashion until we open up the lever like we just did. And I'm going a tiny bit higher now into the guideline. So the concept of this is to go from the middle to the open position to now the closed position to hit the beginning of the guideline. Once you guys have it closed, we can just work our way up with the lever. So meaning that we just open up the lever little by little and go higher into the guideline until our guideline is completely blended. You guys want to make sure you guys repeat that process right here on this side of the head, and you guys do it on the other side of the head. So you guys can see that I'm working from the ear to the temple of the head, and I'm working on this area so then I can move to another position of the head from the ear to the back of the occipital bone. Once that guideline is completely blended, a good thing that I like doing every single time I move on to the next step, I just like recreating my guideline. This is the number 1 guard with the lever open, just so I can have a clean visual of how much room I have to work with, and just making sure that my guideline is consistent is gonna just result in a very consistent fade. So now that we have our guideline set, basically restructured, let's close our lever and baby tap the beginning of the guideline. This is going to be a different lever method. This is going to be a close to open lever method, meaning that we start with the closed lever, hit the beginning, and we keep opening up the lever little by little as we go higher into the guideline. So in the previous step, I did middle open closed. It's just a preference for me to start in the middle in the first guideline. After that, I just like doing close to open just to stay fairly consistent. I open the lever a little bit, go a tiny bit higher. But in this step, guys, make sure you guys know that the second guideline always requires 2 steps to complete the blend. So right here, my lever is closed, baby tapping the beginning, and I'm gonna repeat that process until my lever is open. Once I'm comfortable with moving on to the next step, the next step is going to be to use my 0.5 guard and apply the same pressure, guys. They close the open lever method, but just the rules change a little bit. We have a 1 finger guideline that we have to blend, but we only have half of that room to work with our 0.5 guard. So keep that in mind when you guys are working. So stay focused and don't go as high as you're supposed to. If you want to go higher, just open up the lever all the way and use the corners to attack those dark spots. We have successfully blended 2 guidelines. Now we have 1 more guideline left. Let's close the lever, baby, tap the beginning of the guideline and opening up the lever little by little. So then we can end up in this last step, putting our lever in a 3/4 open position with the 1.5 guard to just dig into the beginning of the guideline and just stay very patient in this step, guys, because by the time you guys go through this method about 3 to 4 times, your guideline should easily blend out. And if it doesn't blend out, close the lever a little bit and just pick at it, guys, so then we can go to the next step, which is going to be to blend out all of this bulk. This is probably the most important part of the whole haircut. So go down with the grain with your sharpest trimmer, about half a finger of room. So it was very important that you guys keep your work and the bulk organized throughout the whole fading process. So then we can do this and then go up with the grain. Once we go down with the grain, we want to go up with the grain and just hit the top of that bulk to create a nice zero transition, a little ball transition before we go in and we remove the bulk. And the reason why we kept that bulk to begin with was to give us a guide, a complete guide of where and when to use our shaver. Because as a beginning barber, I used to get confused a lot on how high to go up with my shaver. Am I going too high into the blend? Am I going to create another harsh line? This is a perfect technique that you guys can use as a beginning barber to just get used to blending out that zero line. My client didn't like the length on the sides that flaps over, so we wanted to give him kind of like a pretty decent trim to the point where if he doesn't do his hair, the sides of his hair is not going to flap down to the sides. So in order for us to get a nice clean trim, we take a vertical section from the center of his hair and we're taking down about, I'd like to say, 1 inch from the center, and that's going to give us our guide for the whole trim. So once you guys can get that first guide and just make sure that it's nice and even, we can then take a horizontal section and connect it to that vertical section that we created. If you guys notice, the front of his hair is a lot longer than the back. So we just have to keep that in mind, guys, to keep the front a little bit longer because the back was already shorter. So just repeat the process of this, of just matching the guidelines together. Don't rush the process on any part of your haircuts, guys. It's better to be detail oriented and to take a little bit longer on your haircuts than to rush your client, because your client is not going to get what he wants. And for the finishing touches, I applied some Pacino's pomade, combed it through. This is the before and this is the after. A mid to high slick back haircut, guys. I appreciate you guys for all the constant support. We just hit 40,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for everything, and I'll catch you guys next week for more haircut tutorials. Peace.